Well, joining me is Kerry Sharpe MLC, and we're talking about the ongoing debate into public service broadcasting, or media, I think is the terminology they use. And I thought it'd be worth talking to you because you came up and I thought it was an interesting idea. I hadn't heard anything about it beforehand. I don't think any of the MHKs or many had also heard about your idea. Anyway, as it's turned out, nothing really got sorted. It's all going back to the next Tynwald, isn't it? So in the new year. But I thought this would be a great chance to explain to me and to the audience and your ideas, because obviously, like a lot of other people, Manx radio reporting has gone on and on and on, and it seems like there's no particular end. Have I covered that bit right?
Yeah.
And how do you deal with your idea?
Okay, well, I mean, as you say, I don't think anyone really knew about my idea.
Oh, you hadn't?
And I mentioned it in the tea break in the Tynwald sitting to a few members, and they nearly choked on their Crawford creams because I'd been formulating my ideas as I read through the report, and I thought about it, and I looked at the recommendations, and I read the evidence, and it just seemed to me, especially as a media professional, that to follow the recommendations that were in the report would be to go down the wrong road, because as you say, we're on like the 14th report into how can we fix Manx radio. So, my thoughts were, well, okay, forget focusing on Manx radio, because the future of public service media is not really looking like an FM radio station on a hill. And that's, I say that without meaning to denigrate Manx radio, because, it's an important institution and it's always been part of our culture, and it provides a great service, and I have every respect for its journalists. But what I'm saying is that the future is about media in all its cross-platform glory, and we have to be thinking about media in terms of radio output, of which Manx radio journalists could play a part. Why shouldn't they? But also television, whether it's traditional television or over the internet. It's about, how do you use the internet? It's about podcasts, blogs, vlogs. It's all the way that the public is using the media. That's what we need to be using as our channels for public service media. So
you see setting up a media centre then in the Crow's Nest? I think as an idea you came up with a place.
I mean, it could be the Crow's Nest, it could be the Villa Marina.
How does that work though? Do people from every part of the Isle of Man's media work there, and how they get the money, and then the organisations buy the news off them, or have you worked it out?
These details can come later. I think what is important at the moment is that in general, people on the island need to get over this idea that public service media in the Isle of Man equals Manx radio, because it doesn't have to just be Manx radio. So, just personally speaking, what I would do is I would have an Isle of Man public service media offering, and I would work out what that offering is going to be, what those channels are going to be. And then I would think about where can I put it. I would move my radio journalists across into a more suitable building, because everyone agrees that the Manx radio building is not suitable. It's not fit for purpose, it's not even accessible if you have a disability, for example, and we shouldn't have our public service media provider in a building where nobody with a physical disability can work.
I think they've asked for money though to do it up though, haven't they, to put in a lift and that sort of thing?
Yes, but we all know that the building was designed for training naval officers, as far as I know.
It's bomb-proof.
It's
very thick building.
The staircases are like those on a ship. It's just not the right building. So why not move the journalists across into a much more suitable building? And I don't yet know what the details are as to who is going to be in this building, but why shouldn't you also have some commercial operators within the same building, and some kind of means of sharing equipment, and so then you reduce your overheads and you all have a lot more money then to actually make programmes.
Well, there'd be a problem though of duplicity not consistent there in news, because it's nice to have two sources, isn't there, on a story. You could end up with just one journalist going to one story, and that version goes out on all the different media.
Well, there's clearly room at the moment for 3 separate radio stations on the island. So there's no reason why you shouldn't still have 3FM or Energy covering news, as well as your public service. And I mean, you could share content in terms of somebody might go out to make recordings about, I mean, the example I used in Tynwald was brass band music, because there's a programme on Manx Radio called
Time for Brass.
Time for Brass. Okay, so there's obviously an audience there for this programme, but somebody could go out and create content, bring it back to the hub, and then you could use that material in a variety of ways. You know, there are lots of young people who are interested in brass. You know, so you use that content, but you repackage it and you put it out on, you know, a podcast, or, you know, some way that you're going to reach that younger audience, as well as your more traditional older audience. Get
more bang to your box, like the actual media stuff. Okay.
Because we have to share, we have to collaborate, because we're only a small island. So, you know, bringing everything together will make it a lot easier and cheaper to make programmes.
More about this in a second, but let's find out where we're going with this, because you're going to make a briefing, are you, to the MHK, so explain your ideas fully before the January Tynwald, when technically this can come up again on the vote, right? I mean,
I may do, that's one option.
But people need to know what they're going to vote for, right? How do you think it's going in there? I mean, because it was all left in limbo. There's going to be a combined vote at the minute.
I know, it was left on a cliffhanger.
You went one way,
which was you know, it was like a Hollywood blockbuster. You know,
say you went one way, the MLCs went one way, and House of Keys went another way.
Yeah, so we come back to vote again on Tim Baker's amendment.
Do you think that'll go through?
We'll have to see. We'll have to see.
I mean, other options are not, they're all, you know, as I say, the very beginning, here we go again, or your radical view, I suppose. And is it just too radical, your idea?
Well, some people have said that it is too radical right now, that the Isle of Man can't conceive of, you know, not having Manx Radio in its, you know, in its current form. But I mean, you know, the future is coming, and there's nothing we can do about that. And the future in media is moving away from FN radio, and it makes far more sense if you're going, for example, to go down the visual route, to have people who are trained in audio visual to use cameras, etc., and people who are trained in radio, you know, to concentrate on radio and to carry on making those sort of high quality programs. What was the question that you just asked me?
That's all right.
I've lost myself.
That's all right. I've got another one for you anyway. We've got Chris Thomas potentially now going off to the BBC with a, you know, can have some more sort of feel to it. You're an ex-BBC person. You know how the corporation works. I mean, I've worked there for a little while, not as long as you. But do you think there's a willingness the BBC will engage with the Isle of Man government to equal things up slightly? Because I mean, you must be aware, obviously, what the Channel Islands gets. This always now comes up. You know, they get the TV, they get the two radio stations, and the Isle of Man presumably doesn't get much compared with what they spend.
I am going to visit Channel Islands TV at the end of January, so that'll be really interesting. But I think this is why I was saying in my speech in Tynwald that we need a public service media strategy, and that's when we need to begin. We need to work out exactly what do we want our public service media to look like. Then, when we've worked out what we want, we can work out how much that costs. Then we can go to the BBC and say, look, this is what we want, and this is how much it's going to cost. And then I think we would stand a lot better chance of perhaps obtaining some of that licence fee money, the 4.8 million that we're paying every year. You know, but we've got to know what we're talking about. You know, we've got to have costed it out properly, so that's how we approach it. And
finally, do you think this will be resolved one way or the other in January? In Tynwald, the future will be given some guidance, even if it's just another report.
I think if the majority of members vote to send Council of Ministers off to yet again look at how they can fix Manx Radio, we will not hear the end of this. We'll be coming back again for another report and another set of recommendations. You know, I think it's time to just wipe the slate clean and to start from scratch and to design the public service media strategy that we need for the future.